if you ever trying to do research, you search up Ifa. Search up Ifa. There's different branches of it though, but just to make it real.
Y'all see what's going on here? This John demonic as can be. This is the artist that made that viral song 6'7".
This guy right here is probably one of the most demonic rappers currently of the time, right? And he's definitely being used by Satan. Listen to these video clips, guys.
Playboi Carti just gave a full-blown demon-possessed performance at the Rolling Loud Music Festival, saluting the crowd with the devil horns hand salute while he had an upside-down cross displayed on his screen in the background. And the upside-down cross is a symbol of the rejection of Jesus, the Son of God.
You're not gonna believe what I'm about to show you, because what we're getting into today is the kind of stuff that makes you look at your favorite rappers completely different. We're talking about the moments, the visuals, the performances, the symbolism that millions of fans have been questioning for years, and I mean years. This ain't new. This conversation has been going on in comment sections, Reddit threads, Discord servers, and late night YouTube rabbit holes since rap started going mainstream. But lately, it's getting louder, way louder. And today we're breaking down the most talked about examples that fans say prove there's something deeper going on behind the music, something darker, something most people walk right past without even blinking. So buckle up, because by the end of this video, you're going to be looking at album covers, music videos, and stage performances with completely different eyes. Let's get into it. Okay, so first things first. Let me set the stage here, because if we're going to talk about this topic the right way, we got to understand where this whole conversation even started. Like, why do people connect rap music to dark symbolism in the first place? Where did that come from? And the answer goes way back, not just to hip hop, but to music in general. Rock and roll was called the devil's music. Blues legends were accused of making deals at crossroads. Heavy metal got congressional hearings over satanic lyrics. So this idea of music being tied to something sinister, that's been part of the culture conversation forever. But hip hop took it to a completely different level, because hip hop doesn't just play with imagery. Hip hop becomes the imagery. The videos, the fashion, the branding, the performances, all of it bleeds together into one world. And when that world starts pulling from darker aesthetics, people notice and they start asking questions. Now, I want to be super clear before we go any further. A lot of what we're talking about today is rooted in fan speculation, internet theory, and artistic interpretation. I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm here to break down what people are saying, why they're saying it, and what actually happened that got people talking. Because some of these moments, they're real. The visuals are real. The performances are real. The statements are real. What they mean is where everybody starts disagreeing. And that's exactly what makes this conversation so wild. All right, let's get into the names. Let's talk about Playboi Carti first, because bro, the whole lot of red era might be the single most discussed chapter in this entire conversation. And I'm not even exaggerating. When that album dropped on Christmas Day 2020, the internet went absolutely insane. Not just because of the music, because of everything surrounding it. The aesthetic, the visuals, the energy, the whole package. Carti came out looking like a vampire. Red eyes, fangs, dark imagery all over the rollout. And fans were split right down the middle. Half of them thought it was the coolest creative direction they'd ever seen. The other half started pulling up screenshots and timestamps and going, yo, wait a minute, what is actually happening here? And here's where it gets crazy. It wasn't just the album cover or the music videos. It was the timing. Christmas Day. A rapper dropping an album that looks like it was pulled from a gothic horror film on Christmas Day. That detail alone sent theorists into overdrive. People were saying it was intentional, that dropping something dark and ritualistic on one of the most sacred days in Christianity was a statement. Was it? Carti never really addressed it directly, but the conversation didn't stop. It exploded. Fans went back through his entire catalog looking for patterns. They looked at his old interviews, his old social media posts. The way his aesthetic had been slowly shifting darker and darker over the years. And the deeper they dug, the more questions they had. Then there's the concert stuff. Oh my God, the concert footage from that era. Carti's live shows became events, not just concerts, events. The production, the visuals, the way he carried himself on stage, all of it was designed to feel like something between a rock show and a ritual. Fans in the pit were losing their minds. The energy was unlike anything in rap at that time. And some people loved it for exactly that reason. But others were posting clips online saying this doesn't feel like a rap concert anymore. This feels like something else entirely. And those clips went viral multiple times. Now look, the man himself never confirmed any of this. In interviews, when people have pushed on the dark imagery, the team around him has largely framed it as artistic vision, a character, a creative evolution. And honestly, that's a completely valid explanation. Artists adopt personas all the time. David Bowie did it. Marilyn Manson built an entire career on it. Even Eminem created Slim Shady as a separate entity. So the idea that Carti was building a vampire rock star character for artistic purposes is not far-fetched at all. But that didn't stop the conversation, because on the internet, once people connect dots, it's very hard to unconnect them. But wait, let me keep it moving because we haven't even gotten to Skrilla yet. Unlike a lot of these artists where you're left guessing, Skrilla actually put it on record himself. Like bro just came out and said it. In an interview that spread everywhere titled Skrilla on sacrificing goats and chicken for his religion, he straight up addressed the practice of animal sacrifice tied to his faith. And chat, when that clip started circulating, people were losing it because you don't hear that from a rapper on a major label, like ever. The religion he practices pulls from Yoruba tradition, specifically Santeria, a West African spiritual system with deep roots that go back centuries. And his album Underworld, that thing is packed with direct references to it. Tracks named after Osun and Yamaja, both Orishas which are spiritual deities from that tradition, and reviewers who actually sat with the album described it as something that feels genuinely eerie. Choral wails, deep ceremonial bells, spiritual energy pulling from Christianity, Islam, and Yoruba religion all bleeding into each other. And then you look at the visuals on top of all that, the masks, the underworld branding, the eerie imagery that runs through everything he puts out. And then fans find out he openly talked about animal sacrifice in a real interview. No cap, the comment sections went crazy, because at that point it's not even a theory anymore. The man said it himself. What people point to specifically is the consistency of the imagery. It's not like one random music video had a dark theme and people ran with it. It's the whole world he's built around his music. The color palettes, the symbols that appear repeatedly, the way performances are staged, the recurring motifs that fans claim line up with occult symbolism. And when fans of certain communities started breaking these down, side by side with actual historical imagery from mystery schools, secret societies, and ritual traditions, the screenshots spread fast, real fast. Now again, the opposing argument is simple and it's worth taking seriously. Dark aesthetics sell. They always have. Black and red color schemes, inverted imagery, gothic visuals, all of that creates a strong brand identity. It makes you memorable, it makes you stand out. In a genre that is more crowded than ever before, having a visual language that is immediately recognizable is a massive strategic advantage. So is it ritual or is it branding? And that question is genuinely hard to answer from the outside, because both can look exactly the same. Here's what gets really interesting though. The fan community around these theories isn't just casual. These are people who are doing deep research, and I mean deep, pulling up books on Freemasonry, cross-referencing album artwork with alchemical symbols, comparing hand gestures in music videos with gestures documented in historical records, time-stamping specific moments and performances and comparing them to ritual calendars. The level of detail that goes into some of these fan investigations is honestly mind-blowing. Whether you believe the conclusions or not, the effort is undeniable. And this is where the conversation gets into broader hip-hop territory, because Skrilla and Carti are far from the only names that come up in these discussions. The list of rappers who fans have accused of using dark or occult imagery is long, very long, and it goes back decades. Think about some of the biggest names in the game and the moments that got people talking. Jay-Z and Rockefeller Records. You've got to bring this up because for years, fan theorists have been pointing at the name itself, Rockefeller. Rockefeller, one of the most famous elite families in American history, connected to secret societies in the minds of many conspiracy communities. And then you look at the rock sign that diamond-shaped Jay-Z made famous. He said it stands for Rock Nation, for his brand, but online, people were saying that shape has older meanings. Sacred geometry, the all-seeing eye framing, and those videos went everywhere. Now Jay-Z has addressed this multiple times. He's called it a simple logo. He's laughed it off. And most mainstream music journalists would agree with him. It's a diamond shape, it's a brand symbol. But the fact that the conversation never died down, that it kept resurfacing, that it spawned hundreds of YouTube videos and forum threads, that tells you something about how deeply people were paying attention. And once that seed was planted in pop culture, it changed how people looked at everything that came after. Then there's Kanye West. And this is a complicated one because Kanye's whole narrative has so many layers. But the moments people point to are specific. The Yeezus era. That album rollout was designed to provoke. The imagery was religious, dark, confrontational. The tour had visuals that were intentionally unsettling. Kanye himself said in interviews that he was tapping into something spiritual with that project. And fans who were already primed to look for deeper meanings took that and ran. But here's the flip side of the Kanye conversation that people often overlook. The man became openly Christian. He started Sunday service. He made the Jesus is King album. He's been vocal about his faith in ways that are hard to fake at that scale. So how do you reconcile the Yeezus imagery with the Sunday service era? Well, some fans say that's exactly the point, that the dark phase was real and the Christian turn was a response to it. Others say the whole thing is performance, and others say it's just the artist going through different creative phases. All three explanations exist simultaneously in the discourse, and none of them has been definitively proven. And you know what? While we're on the subject of artists whose entire image seems designed to make you uncomfortable, we can't skip over Lil Uzi Vert, because the conversations around Uzi have been going for years, and they hit different because of how openly he engaged with the imagery himself. This is an artist who tattooed a pink heart on his forehead, who publicly talked about having a rare pink diamond implanted into his actual forehead, who built an entire aesthetic around being something not quite human, something other. And the internet ran with that energy hard. Fans and theorists started pointing to his lyrics, his interviews, his fashion choices, and drawing lines between all of it in themes of possession, dark energy, and spiritual sacrifice. The diamond forehead thing especially. People were saying that kind of body modification has symbolic roots, that embedding something precious into your physical body like that connects to older traditions that most people in mainstream culture have never heard of. Now Uzi himself has played it cool, laughed it off, called it art, called it fashion. And again, that's a completely reasonable explanation for an artist who has always operated on the extreme edge of self-expression. But the conversation didn't stop. It never stops. Because once that framing exists, every new thing an artist does gets filtered through it. Every outfit, every music video, every cryptic Instagram post, it all becomes evidence in a case that fans are constantly building and rebuilding. And that's what makes this topic so endlessly fascinating, because you can take the same set of facts and reach completely different conclusions depending on what framework you're using to interpret them. If you believe in literal satanic influence in the music industry, you're going to look at these visuals and see confirmation. If you believe in the power of branding and artistic mythology, you're going to see smart creatives building compelling narratives. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you're going to be watching these videos at 2 in the morning going, yo, I don't know what to think. Let's get into the performance side of things more specifically, because this is where a lot of the most viral moments come from. Live performances have always been a space where artists push boundaries, but some performances have crossed into territory that genuinely made audiences uncomfortable in ways that went beyond normal concert energy. The Travis Scott Astroworld Festival is something that cannot be left out of this conversation, even though what happened there was first and foremost a tragedy. 10 people died. That is a real devastating fact. But in the aftermath, as people try to process something that seemed almost incomprehensible, a certain segment of online community started examining the event through a different lens. The stage design, the specific visual choices in the production, the way the crowd surge seemed to unfold. And some people started claiming it wasn't an accident, that there was symbolism embedded in the event design that pointed to something intentional. Now, mainstream investigators, safety experts, and legal proceedings have approached this as a crowd safety failure, a devastating but explainable tragedy born from poor planning and inadequate safety measures. That is the documented, evidence-supported explanation. But the other narrative spread incredibly fast online. And the reason it spread so fast is because people were already primed by years of dark imagery conversations to believe the worst. The seeds had been planted long before Astroworld, and when something truly horrific happened, those seeds grew fast. Travis Scott has not been found criminally liable. He's spoken about the tragedy publicly. He's donated to families, but his public image was genuinely altered by the way that online conversation unfolded, regardless of the legal outcomes. And that tells you something powerful about how these narratives work. Once the framing exists, once people are primed to see darkness in a performer's world, a tragedy doesn't get processed as a tragedy, it gets processed as evidence. Let's zoom out for a second and talk about why this kind of content hits so differently in rap versus other genres. Because rock, metal, electronic music, all of these spaces have had their own dark imagery controversies. But something about rap makes the conversation more intense. And I think it comes down to authenticity culture. In hip hop, more than almost any other genre, artists are expected to be real, to live what they rap about. The culture places enormous value on authenticity, which means that when a rapper adopts a dark persona, there's an expectation in some corners of the fan base that it isn't just performance, that it's real. That if you're rapping about demons and darkness and chaos, you've actually been there. You've actually touched that world. And that creates a very different relationship between fan and artist than you get with, say, a heavy metal band that everyone understands is putting on a theatrical show. So when fans see occult imagery in a rap video, they don't automatically categorize it as theater. They wonder if it's a window into something real. And that wondering is where all the speculation begins. Now, let's talk about the symbolism itself, because I think a lot of people who aren't deep in these communities don't realize how specific the claims get. This isn't just vibes and dark colors. The fan investigations often point to very particular symbols. The Eye of Horus, the Baphomet image, inverted crosses, the number 666, checkered floors, owl imagery, specific hand signs. And the claim isn't that these symbols just appear randomly. The claim is that they appear consistently, deliberately, across multiple artists, across multiple projects, and that this consistency proves coordination rather than coincidence. And when you actually look at some of these side-by-side comparisons that fans put together, it's easy to see why people find them compelling. You'll have 3 completely different artists from different labels in different cities, and their album covers will all feature the same obscure geometric arrangement. You'll have 5 different music videos that all use the same specific lighting technique and scenes that involve similar thematic elements. And fans go, that can't be coincidence. But here's the counter argument that's equally compelling. Creative trends are real. They spread through the industry organically. A visual director works with one artist, develops a look, and that look gets copied because it's successful. An album cover wins a design award, and suddenly 6 other artists are asking their teams to do something similar. The music industry is a creative ecosystem where ideas travel fast, so the same symbols appearing across multiple artists might not be coordination, it might just be trends, aesthetic movements. The way that one summer everyone suddenly started using the same Instagram filter. The truth probably lives somewhere in the complicated middle. Some of this is definitely trend following. Some of it might be individual artists making deliberate choices to tap into dark aesthetics because it generates attention and builds mystique. And some of it might be more intentional than any of the artists involved would ever publicly admit, because mystery is powerful. And in the attention economy, mystery sells. Let me bring it back to some specific visual moments that really ignited these conversations online. Because we've been talking theory, but the actual moments are what spread these ideas. There's the 2023 Grammy Awards performance that got people absolutely talking. Multiple mainstream artists on one stage with imagery that fans immediately started dissecting. The costumes, the choreography, the lighting design, the way specific moments were framed in the broadcast. Within hours of the performance ending, the discourse online was loud. Clips were being posted with circles drawn around specific details. Frame by frame breakdowns were being uploaded to YouTube. The comment sections were going crazy. Now, the artists themselves and the Grammy production team would describe all of those choices as creative expression, high production value entertainment. And from a pure spectacle standpoint, that's completely accurate. These are professionals who understand how to create compelling visual theater for a massive audience. But the fans who are already watching with a different lens, they weren't seeing theater, they were seeing ritual. This dynamic plays out over and over again in this space. The same event, interpreted completely differently by different audiences, and the internet amplifies both interpretations equally, which is why these conversations never really end, they just evolve. Something else worth discussing is the role that artists themselves sometimes play in fueling these theories. Because not everyone is trying to distance themselves from the dark imagery narrative. Some artists lean into it hard, whether as a joke, as a brand move, or as something else entirely. And that leaning in creates its own layer of confusion. When a rapper posts something cryptic online during the full moon, when an artist drops a project with packaging that includes symbols you have to research to understand, when someone gives an interview and deliberately doesn't answer certain questions while smiling, all of that feeds the machine, and smart artists know it. Mystery is marketing. Speculation is free promotion. If fans are spending hours online debating whether your imagery is satanic or artistic, you're winning the attention game regardless of which side they land on. So it's worth asking how much of this is genuinely meaningful and how much of it is strategy. Because the line between those two things has never been harder to find. Let's talk about how this conversation shifted and grew specifically in the streaming era. Because before YouTube, before TikTok, before Twitter, these conversations existed, but they stayed in smaller spaces, church basements, local radio call-ins, photocopy pamphlets at record stores. The people making these arguments were often dismissed as fringe, as extreme, as out of touch. But the internet changed everything. Suddenly a teenager in a small town could find a 45-minute video breaking down occult symbolism in hip-hop and watch it in bed at midnight with earbuds in. Suddenly those fringe ideas had massive reach, and the algorithm figured out fast that this content kept people watching. Because it's engaging, it's mysterious, it combines music that people already love with ideas that feel forbidden and dangerous. That's a potent combination, and it created an entire genre of online content that has only grown bigger with time. The channels making this content went from a few thousand subscribers to hundreds of thousands. The most popular videos in this space have tens of millions of views. Entire podcasts are dedicated to it, and as the audience grew, the content got more sophisticated, better production, more specific claims, more cross-reference evidence. And that sophistication made the ideas more compelling, even to people who might have dismissed them before. And now we're in a moment where these conversations have crossed over from niche online communities into mainstream discourse, where Grammy performances get dissected for satanic imagery in trending Twitter threads, where album rollouts are analyzed not just for musical choices but for symbolic ones, where artists have to think about how a single visual choice might be interpreted not just by critics but by the massive online community that believes the music industry has a darker side. That's a genuinely new reality, and it's one that I don't think is going away. Now let me give you the full picture here because I think it's important. A lot of people who are deep in these communities are genuinely good faith researchers. They're curious. They've done real reading on history, on secret societies, on symbolism, on how power operates. And some of their observations are actually interesting even if their conclusions are contested. The idea that powerful industries sometimes use shared symbolic language, that's not crazy. The idea that entertainment is sometimes used to shape culture, that's not paranoid. That's media literacy 101. Where it gets problematic is when speculation gets presented as fact, when fan theories get treated as documented evidence, when a performer wearing red and black at a concert becomes proof of initiation into something sinister, because that leap from observation to conclusion skips over a whole lot of critical thinking that needs to happen in between. The healthiest way to engage with this content is to ask real questions without assuming you already know the answers. To look at imagery and ask what it might mean and who created it and why, without deciding the answer before you've actually investigated. To hold multiple interpretations simultaneously and accept that some questions might not have clean answers, because the most honest truth about all of this, we don't know. Not fully. We can point to visuals, we can note patterns, we can document what artists have said and not said. We can trace the history of these symbols. But what any individual artist actually intends, what actually happens behind closed doors, what any of this actually means in a spiritual or metaphysical sense, that's genuinely unknowable from where most of us are sitting. And anyone who tells you they have all the answers is probably selling something. What we do know is that dark imagery is powerful. It always has been. It taps into something deep in human psychology. Our fear of the unknown, our fascination with taboo, our desire to understand hidden things. And music, especially hip hop, has always understood how to tap into those primal feelings. That's part of why it's the most influential genre in the world right now. And as long as that power exists, artists are going to keep using dark aesthetics, some because it genuinely reflects where they are artistically, some because it builds their brand, some because it creates conversation, some, maybe, for reasons we can't fully see. And fans are going to keep watching, keep questioning, keep connecting dots, because that's what humans do when they encounter something that feels like it might mean more than what's on the surface. And honestly, that curiosity is not a bad thing. Asking questions about the culture you consume, about what it's saying and why, about who benefits from certain kinds of imagery and who might be harmed by others. That's exactly what a thoughtful audience should be doing. The goal isn't to land on a paranoid conclusion. The goal is to watch with your eyes open. So the next time you're watching a music video and something catches your eye, the next time an album rollout gives you that feeling like there's something underneath what you're seeing, the next time a performance makes the whole internet stop and go, wait, what was that? Don't just scroll past it. Sit with it. Ask what it might mean. Look into it. Form your own view. Because whether this stuff is art, branding, spiritual expression, or something else entirely, one thing is undeniable. It's making you think. It's making you look closer. And in a world where most content is designed to let you turn your brain completely off, that might actually be the most interesting thing about all of it. And that's a breakdown of some of the most talked about moments in the satanic imagery conversation in rap culture. If this video had you thinking, if it made you look at something differently, if it made you want to go do your own research, then you got to hit that subscribe button, because we're going deeper on topics like this every single week. And if you want more content that gets into the stuff most channels won't touch, the next video is already waiting for you. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.